So let's chat EDC. Can you explain how much this festival means to you personally as like both an artist and an individual?
Well, I'm based in Europe, so I never had a chance to visit EDC myself. But obviously I'm involved in Rampage and for my event Rampage as a promoter, but also as a DJ, as a producer. EDC is just like one of the benchmark events in the world. So to kind of finally being a part of that for once is pretty spectacular. EDC has a production standard that is being mimicked or is something that people are trying to approach around the world. It's something that we look at very closely as Rampage. I think EDC and more closer to home, Tomorrowland are some of the festivals that really put an effort into production and really set the bar very high. And that's something that we keep a very close eye on. And I've had the guys from EDC over at Rampage last year, so it was cool to get their feedback at our event. And now it's time for me to go and see how they do it up close and personal in Vegas. So it's really cool.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. In your opinion, how do you believe you may have gotten to the level in order to perform at one of these amazing stages?
I think that releasing music is a big part of it. I've been in the music industry primarily as a DJ for over 20 years now. I've been a promoter for almost as long. But in order to get on the radar of other promoters, festival promoters, there needs to be music out there. And I've been releasing music quite steadily for the past 5-6 years. I have more music, more and more releases, different labels. And I think the relationship with Viper Recordings has been an instrumental part in that because, well, I think a lot of other people feel the same way. It's one of the top drum and bass labels out there. And it's one of the labels that I can imagine people that program for an event like EDC keep in touch with and keep tabs on what the new talent is that they're coming through with. And on top of that, I think the connection that I have to the EDC guys with doing Rampage, because obviously they are aware of what we're doing in Belgium. And I think they might even want to show off what they're doing in Vegas, and which is it's cool for them to bring me over there to show me what they're doing there.
So for the fans that are just learning that you're going to be performing, can you give us a little heads up on what they can expect from that performance?
Well, it's going to be a back-to-back thing with some other people from the Viper label, which is very exciting. I've been going back-to-back with a few of them, notably I think last year or 2 years ago, 2017 at ADE, the Amsterdam Dance Conference in Amsterdam, obviously. We had a very, very, very cool vibe going with Matrix and Futurebound, Brooks Brother and Scientific, and myself, four-way back-to-back on a boat on the Amsterdam canals, which was absolutely insane. So I think that people are going to be they're going to be in for a treat when we get to the decks over there at Vegas. Plus, obviously people in EDC are also involved in Bassrush, and they have a record label, and we've been talking for quite a while about doing a release on their label. So most likely I'm going to be putting out some music with them, of which some of it, at least some of it, will be primarily directed at the people visiting EDC in Vegas. So it's kind of a special thing that we think will really hit home with the American crowd.
What is one of the craziest EDCs you two experienced?
Well, I started working with Insomniac back in April of 2009. So I would have to say that the craziest EDC for me would have been the first one that I experienced in Los Angeles in 2009. I mean, I think it was so crazy for me because it was something that I had never really been exposed to on that level. Whereas I also feel that the festivals for Insomniac had just been getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. But up until that year, it had never experienced the magnitude that they did as far as like the festival boom. You know, we went from having tens of thousands to 100,000 people, like that had never happened before. And I had absolutely no clue like what I was doing. I don't think any of us did, but that's one of the reasons why I think that the company itself became so good, because they had to go through all of that and they experienced the change so abruptly. And one of the things that was so memorable about it was the drum and bass lineup at the time. Like they had Monsters of Jungle, where like it was an entire tour that took over the stage from like 9 o'clock at night until 2 a.m. And it was ridiculous. And then you had like Sub Focus and Andy C and Hype and like all these legendary acts playing on these little side stages that you look back at, like the production is so dinky compared to what it is now. But I just remember like going back and looking at that and being like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing that I've ever seen. And now looking at that stage, that's like something that I would put in my backyard, you know. I mean, compared to like what they're doing now, I mean, it's gone above and beyond any of my expectations. But even due to it being so crazy, I still think that EDC 2009 was my craziest EDC.
Okay. Yeah, so I've only been working for Insomniac for about, I want to say, going on 4 years, right, Derek? Does this sound right?
Yeah, about 4 years.
Something like that. So I got introduced to this whole Insomniac team kind of by accident, by meeting Derek. And so the first year I actually got to meet Derek and got to speak with him was because so I also have a production duo, and we won the Discovery project to play EDC, and that's when I met Derek. And by some weird, false, just random set of events, you know, Derek and I got close, and then we started realizing we both love drum and bass as much as each other. And from there, that first EDC is when we started to realize, like, okay, cool, like, where can we take this? And so, I mean, since then, we've just been growing off each other and trying to, you know, figure out how we can build this as a brand and as a country, and to keep pushing it in, you know, drum and bass itself. So that being said, I want to say last year was particularly special because we had a bunch of new, you know, people that came to the States that hadn't been here in a very long time, if at all. And it was received really well. And so we kind of tried to set a precedent this year by pulling off the same magnitude of a lineup. And so each year I feel like we kind of just try to, you know, we're going to keep trying to get better and bring more people over that, you know, haven't been here or are sought after here. So yeah, I think every year from here on out is going to be just as crazy.
Yeah.
Derek, I love that you mentioned like back in the day and how that was crazy for you, because people forget how much time and energy goes into this. They just, you know, a lot of people start to know the festival when it gets really huge, and it's really awesome that you mentioned that. And Shane, I like the way you talk about it and how you guys both have this love for drum and bass and working on this project. It sounds like there's really a lot of heart and soul in what's going on. And obviously EDC is so much more than a festival for you two. Can you explain what EDC means to you?
For me, again, I mean, I always use the saying like on the road to EDC for Insomniac, but that's really what it is. It's like almost as soon as EDC was done, we would immediately start prepping for EDC the next year. And everything was just a build up to that. So it's like once we finally got to EDC and completed everything, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air, because it's like, okay, we made it through. Like all of that other stuff that we did throughout the year was worth it to get to this point. And having a career in production and stuff like that is extremely difficult. And I'm no longer in that portion of my career. I'm still very much involved with Bassrush and Bassrush Records and things like that. But from doing festival production for Insomniac for 10 years, it's extremely taxing. And when you get to something where you can just go all out like EDC Vegas, it's kind of like it made everything along the way worth it. And you see it's just they're like building blocks, you know, and it's also kind of practice because it's working EDC is not it's not for the faint of heart. So I think overall what I'm trying to say is it's a major sense of accomplishment. Being able to pull that off is extremely difficult as in any large festival, but that one in particular with the elements that you're dealing with and the level of the talent, the amount of people, all the different variables that go into play. It's like, if you can come even close to pulling that off, like you've nailed it. And we have over the past so many years. So I feel very proud to say that I was a part of it. So,
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with that. I think that just leading up to all the obstacles you face and all the stress and everything, and then being able to see the people's face when you're, you know, when somebody that you were instrumental in booking, all your hard work, and you just see how happy they are and how much fun they're having, and they, you know, they're living in the moment because of something that you were able to try to push. So that alone to me is just like, it's amazing in itself, because, you know, obviously Derek and I have been fans of this music for forever, you know what I mean? So we were there, we were able to be in the crowd, and still are in the crowd, obviously, and enjoying the stuff that everybody else is as well. So, I mean, to be able to pull something like that off of a magnitude like that, just off passion alone, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah. And touching on something that Shane just brought up, the other side of it, the sense of accomplishment, is being able to look at certain acts that you're booking and putting on that stage. It's like, these are acts that, you know, a couple of years ago, like, nobody heard of, or, you know, they've been DJs that have been accustomed to playing in very small rooms or always on a side stage, or never were to be booked on the American festival scene. And to be able to put them on a stage like that in front of 15,000 people, you know, and them just to do what they need to do and crushing it and kind of exposing people to something new, and, or maybe not, but at the same time, it's like they're doing what they've always wanted to do. And the people that you're going to see in the front of them are people like Shane and I. You know, it's like, we're going to be the fanboys there. It's like, you know, we're kind of train spotting everything, freaking out about what they're playing. Kind of lame, but at the same time, I mean, it's like, there are very few people that we get to do that with. I mean, we are so spoiled here, but at the same time, with this genre of music, we're not. So it's like, when we get them here, it's extra special for us, and we're not booking people just because it's going to sell tickets all the time. You know, we're booking people that we want to see, and we're also booking our friends. Like, we book people who we respect to the highest degree, and being able to have the ability to bring them over to a festival like that, again, is probably the other major accomplishment behind it, and that's why we do it.
Right. I think just to expand on that, like, obviously, like, so Derek and I, we also DJ, but I think we're, on top of booking and everything like that, we're fans of the music first. And I feel like, you know, to be able to experience that, you know, over and over and over again, just to this day, after years, that alone just makes EDC in itself so special, because it's just, you want to see, you know, a certain act all year, and then all of a sudden a certain festival comes, and like 10 of the acts you've been trying to see for like ever are just on the same, you know, festival, and that alone makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
I know that there are artists listening right now that want to know how to get on your radar, but before I ask you that, I really want to hear about Bassrush Records. What do you think we should know about the label?
I think Bassrush Records initially was like, we had talked about doing it for so many years. And, you know, when Insomniac Records became a thing, it was a constant back and forth about getting a record label. You know, there was Dream State within Insomniac, and then there's Wasteland, and then there's, Basscon rather. And then we have Bassrush and things like that. And one of the things that the record label guys continued to talk about was saying that we had a platform for Bassrush Records, but it continued to push towards like the more dubstep, trappy kind of sound like that, and rightfully so. I mean, it's a very popular genre of music right now. I mean, nobody can argue that. So I was trying to find a place for drum and bass within the label. And for a really long time, I pushed to have my own platform for drum and bass, just because I didn't feel that the drum and bass artists were going to get the exposure that they were going to get being on the same, like a multi-genre label like Bassrush. But at the same time, that's what we are. We're a multi-genre brand that pushes all forms of bass music. So I did not want to separate drum and bass from everything else. And because of that, I think that it's working extremely well. It's also exposing a lot of people to drum and bass that would normally not listen to it, that just follow the record label, which has been doing really well. But, you know, we've had acts like, I think Evil Intent did a collaboration on there. And then we had TC, The Prototypes, Malix, Chrissy Chris, Urban Dub, and then we've had Benny L. Shimon. There's so many names I'm trying to remember. But we've been blessed with having extremely amazing material to work with. I mean, we kind of were just winging it. We were just like, oh, let's try this record label thing and let's hit up these people and see if they'll maybe even talk to us. I came from a previous record label that I owned along with a partner, and it was hard to get people to even give you the time of day. Now you hit up somebody, you know, when you're going by Bassrush, you know, when you have that brand backing you, people are much more apt to work with you. And these people they're throwing tunes at us that I just never would have dreamed of even being able to get the opportunity to release. But the one thing that I think that needs to be considered is there is so much material out there and there's only so much time. There's only so much ability to actually release music, which is why we have to be so picky, so to speak, with what we choose. I mean, I'm going to like 85% of the drum and bass that's given, because I think the genre itself is amazing. But, you know, we kind of have to be very selective with what we take, because we only get so many opportunities, which is good, I think. But yeah, it's a really cool platform, and I think it's a great ability to push a lot of the artists that we're booking for our shows to do something and get more involved with our festivals, and also helps with branding their image here in the US. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that needs to be worked on, is there's so much amazing talent that comes here that never gets recognized because people just don't know who they are, because they're so focused on a certain genre of music. Whereas I think a lot of people have a guilty pleasure for drum and bass, whether or not they're going to admit it. But there's always a drum and bass track out there that somebody likes. Yep. So just giving them another way to be exposed to that sound without just it being on a festival level is a step in the right direction, I think. And we've been very fortunate to have the support with it that we've have. So,
yeah, I think drum and bass is an acquired taste, and everybody has their anybody that hasn't really found a track that they like just hasn't heard the right one yet. There's something for everybody. And I feel like, so Derek is primarily like he was the one that really started to push drum and bass on Bassrush Records. This was a little bit before my time, but now we're able to have a platform where we already have like a matter of releases for, you know, upcoming months that are pure quality and very exciting, and things are hitting the charts like right away. And it's just great to have this platform. And we're also working on the 3rd annual compilation with Viper. 4th, yeah, coming up pretty soon. We're doing A&R for that right now, which is also really special because we try to focus on American artists, and in partnership, of course, with Viper's artists all over the world. And just to be able to do things like that on its own is fantastic.
I love that. I love that you have this space to show the music that you really love, and then you use the label to really help brand these people and get noticed for artists? Because yeah, we've got so many amazing people coming out of the UK and they come in to North America, and how would people know of them if it wasn't for festivals like EDC that have such a wide base of genre? So I think that's so smart.
I mean, it's another thing too, where it's, sometimes Bassrush only gets a day or two at some of these multi-day festivals, and because of that, we only have so many drum and bass slots. But when you go back to it and start looking at the drum and bass sales on the record label, in a way, it's our kind of way of maybe making a little bit of leverage to maybe get a slot more on these days, because those numbers are proving themselves. I mean, when you have a top 10 and the top 5 out of the top 10 are drum and bass tracks, obviously they're selling. So there's a demographic there that is buying these tracks, and the point is to try to get those people to go to the show. So yeah. If you're giving somebody that they want to go and see, it's going to generate more tickets. Now, I would be completely lying if I said that, in the broad spectrum of things, that, one of our top selling Bassrush drum and bass tracks is probably at the bottom tier of, some of these other, big room, dubstep tracks and stuff like that. Like we're hitting number 1 in our chart, but number 1 in our chart might maybe number 50 in some other genres chart. We don't know, but that's a big thing for drum and bass, especially on an American label. So there's a major accomplishment there.
And Prototype's TC Species was a tune that we released not too long ago, and I just saw the other day they posted that they nearly have a million Spotify streams.
Yeah,
it's like 990,000 right now. So I mean, it's rising day by day, and it's people are really loving the stuff that we're able to put out. So we're going to continue and keep trying to grow it as a label. And yeah.
Everybody within the record label at Insomniac they're amazing at what they do, and they've given us a lot of great support. And I, it's Shane and I's job to keep it up and keep bringing the quality material. So we have our job to do, and they'll keep helping us. So it's a good dynamic.
So speaking of jobs, you are very much responsible for booking the Bass Pod. And I know there's going to be people out there that are wondering, what do they have to do to get on your radar? What do they have to be as an artist?
Well, Shane and I do the drum and bass portion. We have our other partner, Tony Marino, who is our head of the brand. And is one of the people that is responsible for making Bassrush, as big as it is. So shouts to Tony and all your hard work. But there's a lot of people behind it. And I think from the drum and bass aspect, it's very easy to become a very good artist and a big artist with a great social media plan and all this other crap. But we don't look at that shit. I'm gonna be honest. We book Andy C every festival that we possibly can, not because he's Andy C, but because he's a badass. He's very good at what he does. We want to book people like that. We want people that have, that are good producers, that they're making waves. They're not just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Good quality tracks, a good ability to DJ, have a little bit of life in you. Don't stand up there like you're frozen and in shock. I mean, we've all been there. Looking out at a crowd of like 15,000 people, I've wanted to piss my pants. But you have to put on a show. You have to make it entertaining. There's nothing more boring than standing out in the crowd and watching a DJ that doesn't look like they're enjoying themselves. And I hate to say it, but we've booked a lot of them, and it just doesn't make for a good show. The fans, we have this amazing stage. It's like the focus on you is on you as the DJ, not as the stage. So it's like, you need to step it up. And does that mean jump around all over the table and do a bunch of crazy stuff? No, it doesn't. But for the stage manager's sake, stay off the table. But do your job as a DJ, put on a good show, and, you know, put the effort into it, get up there, take the time and effort to put on a good show for the fans. They're there for you. And I don't know, outside of that, set yourself apart from what everybody else is doing. You know, anybody can DJ at this point in time. So it's very simple. So be creative in your programming, you know, don't send an hour mix and put 11 tracks in it, you know, but also don't submit an hour mix with 300 because that's just not real. That's really all that I got. It's not hard, but then again, something being so simplistic can be very difficult at the same time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think just be the best at your own world. You know what I mean? Because you could play for 13 people, and if those 13 people are having the time of their lives watching you have the time of your life, then that stuff gets noted. And everybody came from something. And so if you put everything into your music and just nerd out and wake up and fall asleep to that music and that passion, you're going to go somewhere. And it gets noticed. So as long as you put everything into your production and your DJing and your technicality and your energy and you embody it, it's gonna work out. Just, you know,
yeah,
you'll eventually end up on our radar, or, you know, you'll end up on ours.
Yeah.
So.
And then just put in the time. I mean,
Yep.
I've been DJing since I was 12 years old. I'm gonna be 35, you know. It's like, it's a crazy amount of time. And, you know, I know that it can be very discouraging when, you know, people are DJing for 2 or 3 years and they're pushing and they're pushing and they're pushing and they're upset about not getting booked. Well, I get it, but at the same time, like, just keep gunning for it. Like, don't let anything stand in your way. Just keep going for it. I mean, you can bug the hell out of anybody for a gig, and you're going to end up playing for free. You're not going to get like this royal artist treatment that you're going to, you know, at that you think that these acts get at shows like EDC. I mean, we've all played for the open room at a side room at a bar, you know, maybe got a drink ticket or two and had the shitty slot at 9 o'clock for nobody, you know, but it's the time where you play that room and there's 50 people in there going completely ape shit, that gig just became the shittiest and went to the best gig that you've ever had. So until you've actually had to do that, you're probably not going to get on stage at EDC, because those types of people that put it, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that haven't done other types of work and things like that, would spend ridiculous amounts of hours in the production studio writing tunes, and then finally something gets noticed, which gets them a gig. But from a DJing standpoint, there's going to be a lot of things weighing down on you until you get to that point. So just endure. It's not for nothing. So,
yep. I think, you know, just keep making tunes. That's the thing. Keep making tunes, and eventually, you know, you'll get noticed.
I mean, that's how Shane made it.
Yep.
Prime example. I mean, him and Troy, his production partner, they went to production school and gunned and entered the Discovery Project and did it. But it's just like, you know, they produced tracks and DJ'd and even DJ'd different genres and things like that until they found out what it is that they wanted to do. And it took a long time. Like, I worked for Insomniac for I don't know how many years before I even got my first gig. And even before that, it's like, I think my first gig my actual first DJing gig for Insomniac was in like 2010, you know? And at that point, I mean, it's 9 years ago. So whatever that math is, you know? And yeah, I mean, I had done a lot of very small shows and whatever. And each and every show is something, there's always a story to take away from it, and it's cool. But you've
DJ'd just about as long as I've been alive. So
yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, I've had my points in time where I've been like, should I keep doing this? But then at the same time, I use it at home as something like some sort of therapy. You know,
Yep.
It's like I go into my studio and I DJ and, you know, ruin my eardrums and piss my neighbors off and give my dogs anxiety. But that's what works for me. And I think that there's probably a lot of people in that same boat. So there's nothing better than being able to go to therapy on a stage in front of 15,000 people. So, yeah.
I like that.
That's all I got.
Well, to end this interview off, what is happening at EDC this year that you two are just over the moon excited about?
I think for me, because I have been gone, I left Insomniac, as I said before, on the production level back in October. So I think by going back to EDC this year is a way of reconnecting with a lot of people that I haven't seen, whether it be on a staff level or on an artist level. There's been a lot of people that I've just been in touch with for a long time that you never get to meet. I mean, being here, it's like you speak to these artists all year long and you're talking about their music and this and this and that, but you very rarely ever get to cross paths until this show. And then you finally get to meet up and actually like talk to these people and whatever. It's kind of like, again, it's just meeting somebody for the first time, even though you felt like you've known them for 10 years. And it's like, I haven't seen Shane in person since October. We talk every day on the phone, but I haven't seen him. So, and it's same to be said with people like Tony and Forrest and the rest of the Bassrush residents, like, Chris and Steve and Dino. There's just, that's what I'm looking forward to. But also at the same time, welcoming new artists that have never played that show before to the festival and actually being able to be there with them and experience that. So for me, that's the biggest thing. I mean, Insomniac's always going to top themselves on a festival level. So, I mean, I did an interview a couple years ago where that was the craziest I had seen as far as production. It just continues to go. So I don't even know what to expect. And I'm sure it's going to be mind blowing, but yeah. I think that's what I'm looking forward to most.
Yeah. Similar answer. I think lately in drum and bass, one of the patterns we've been noticing is a lot of pretty relevant, headliner artists are now teaming up to do back-to-back things, and it kind of creates a whole new live show. And they're also creating tunes together and like a collaborative almost like a new act in itself. Some examples would be, Sub Focus and Wilkinson. And they've only just started really going back to back and kind of creating a whole new live show along with tunes together. And so, this will be our first time in Vegas having that back to back, as well as, AMC and Turno, we've been after them for a long time. and to be able to finally get them out here, just like it's a whole new game really. And other acts, we've had out here as solo artists are now going back to back, like, Dimension and Culture Shock. And just amongst a bunch of others, there's a lot of exciting new talent that, we just can't wait to experience in person.